How's everybody feeling? Okay. So, we, as Chief Naftali mentioned, the individuals from the Civilian Complaint Review Board were unable to make it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read just portions of their literature, just to let you know who they are and why they were formed. Before I read that, the Officer H mentioned something that was very important. And I know that there's these conversations back and forth as far as resisting arrest and excessive force and all those different things. One of the things that Officer H said that was very important is he said, with his PBA card, a little respect goes a long way. And one of the things that we need to realize as a people is we need to go back to the way that our parents taught us. Because our parents always taught us respect. So you have to understand why there is that concern of those officers going back to their families and so on and so forth, and a part of their training and all those different things. I can tell you from experience, I've been in multiple places, multiple states, pulled over for things that I did not feel like I did wrong. A little, the card, and a little respect goes a long way. Because everybody has pride and ego. And once you begin to escalate and elevate your pride and ego, they're going to as well. And one of the things that we need to realize is that they're the ones with the authority, and we're not. So one of the things that you're going to see and you're going to hear throughout the day is you're going to hear about all of these different topics about what has been done to us. And one of the things that I think that we want to consider is what can we do for us? Because that's what's going to be most important. Civilian Complaint Review Board. The New York City Civilian Complaint Review Board is an independent agency. It is empowered to receive, investigate, mediate, hear, and make findings and recommend action on complaints against New York City police officers alleging the use of excessive or unnecessary force, abuse of authority, discourtesy, or the use of offensive language. The board's investigative staff, composed entirely of civilian employees, conducts investigations in an impartial fashion, and the board forwards its findings to the police commissioner. To file a complaint, you can call the CCRB's hotline, and what we're going to do is we're going to post this information on our website. So what we'll ask is, we actually have cards that are on the table that on your way out. Please feel free to take one of those cards, and that card has all of our information on it. It also has the information of Ahm Zadik, and you'll be able to go to the website and review some of that documentation that was left. So, I'm going to actually tell you something that's very rare for us as a black people. We're actually a bit ahead of schedule, which is a good thing. But what I will do is I'll tell you that the next speaker has spent many years of his life performing national outreach, resulting in community cooperation. He has taught spiritual studies in a variety of different forums, including courses in biblical Hebrew. He and I, I've known him a very, very long time, have also organized together many community events and cultural outings for inner city youth. So one of the things I'm going to ask you to do is I'm going to ask you to put your hands together as I bring before you Moreh Yeftahk Dahn ben Yisrael. Hallelujah.
Honor and praise to the Most High God. For without Him, we are nothing. And I'd like to give Him thanks for my life, and even for your lives, for the life that He allowed me to live, for the friends that He surrounded me with, and for allowing me to get to this point in my life. I also want to thank you all, because in particular, you guys are what make these events possible. You know, God put it in your heart to be here this day, so to all my family, friends, those invited organizations and guests, I say to you all this day, peace and blessings, and good afternoon to you all. So before I get started with my talk, I want to ask a question. Before today, by show of hands, how many people have heard of Ahm Zadik? Before today, how many people have heard of Ahm Zadik? Okay, that's about half the room. Now, by show of hands, how many people are aware of the organizations in your community that advocate on your behalf? Even less. That's an issue. And so this is what Ahm Zadik is about, and this is what we do. How do you spell that? Ahm Zadik, spelled A-H-M, Zadik, Z-A-D-I-K. And so, we are just one of many organizations that would like to advocate, that would like to be activists, that would like to partner with all other organizations in our community to make things happen in a positive manner for us, for people that look like you and me, for that when things happen and social injustices occur, we know that there's somebody to advocate for us. That happened in our parents' time. That happened in our grandparents' time. And now in 2020, it's time for us to pick up the baton. It's not good that we don't know that there are people who advocate for us. Because issues are happening daily, yet we don't know where to turn to. We don't know how to contact the civilian complaint review board. Y'all can help me out, trust me. I need all the help I can get. We don't know who's there that we could complain to when voting rights are being suppressed. We don't know who to speak to when we see gentrification happening, but we know it's happening and we say to ourselves, should we just allow it to happen? Should we just allow these things to happen to us? No. Absolutely. But why not? That's when this conversation happens. That's when we speak to one another and we find out what we can do. We have far suffered in silence too long. Oh, I only find out about what you're going through after you've experienced it. That's not good. I only know about where I can go after the damage has happened. But is the idea to get sick and then heal yourself? Or to make sure that you keep your body in such a way so that you don't get sick? We are that body. We can't afford to allow ourselves to get sick. And so, here we are today talking about what we're going to do, how we're going to galvanize as a community, how we're going to help one another in order that we can build and grow and not allow the work of our parents, of our grandparents, and of our great-grandparents go to naught. So, first, as you heard in the introduction, my name is Moreh Yeftahk. Moreh being my title as a teacher, Yeftahk Dahn being my name. I'm part of the organization of Ahm Zadik, which is hosting this event today. I'm also the vice president of an organization named D.Black, which is a faith-based organization of Hebrew Israelites located in the Red Hook section of Brooklyn, New York. But most importantly, I'm a human being first. I'm your brother, you're my sister, and we're family. Right. And regardless of how we serve, what we serve, and do what we do, right, we have to learn and understand to help one another. Right. Yeah. So for a long time, we've been separating ourselves because of our faith. You sit down and you're like, oh, I need to stay away from him because he's a Muslim and I'm not a Muslim. Mm-hmm. And she's a Christian and I'm not a Christian. And matter of fact, he's an atheist. How can you not believe in God? But meanwhile, when police brutality goes down, do they ask you, what's your religion? Do they stop and ask you, who are you related to? But we can see that when these social injustices take place, they always have a face. They're always happening to the same people in the same time and seemingly under the same circumstances. It's always a traffic stop. It's always, what are you doing? It's always, why are you resisting? And then there's certain people that we almost never see it happen to. And so that's the issue. And so, as part of this three-tier presentation that we formulated today, I'll be discussing the issue of gentrification. But not just gentrification, but the negative effects of gentrification on us as a family. And more so, I want to discuss how gentrification is not just an issue that sometimes happens, but that gentrification is a social injustice. Social injustices are byproducts of violations of civil rights. They've gotten away. They want us to believe that civil rights has been resolved. Right. That there's no reason for us to march anymore. There's no reason for us to fight back anymore. Right. Matter of fact, you guys don't even need unions anymore. What are we doing these things for? Right. Everything. You got jobs in the government. That's what we wanted, right? It's there. We're not overtly beating people down. Just sometimes when you get stopped, it was that individual. Look at the tape, but see how I see it. If you were put in that position, what would you do? And so now, let's talk about our housing situation. You know, in the beginning, we didn't have places to live. As slaves, where did we have to live? They had to designate places for us to live. And then as we came out of slavery and we had our jobs, we had to have places that we can afford. What we didn't even realize is that gentrification has been going on since the beginning of time. Follow me. When you're being designated to live in certain places, but those places are subpar and they're only for you, is that a social injustice? Yes or no? Yes. When you stop and you look at your living conditions and they're deplorable, who do you think about? Who do those people look like when you think about deplorable living conditions? And then I want you to ask the question, when you think about people who are living, and I'm going to use an old school term, living high on the hog, for lack of a better term. Who do you think about? Those who have the money, those who have the resources, those who have the ability to start businesses and to take care of themselves. When you think about taking out a loan, who do you think to go to? Who do you think to reach out to? These are the questions that we not only haven't talked about with one another, but we haven't talked about with our children. More so the issue has been pushed. Work hard to get what you want. But this is a little bit more than working hard. Because you can work hard and you can get what you want, but somebody could come and take it away. And so, social injustices are nothing new. Y'all heard me say earlier, they are the byproduct of when our civil rights have been denied. There are issues that affect a certain group or groups of people that look like me and you. And there is a connection between these issues. They create the proverbial domino effect, which prevents or hinders our advancement as a people. Police brutality is a social injustice. Voting suppression is a social injustice. And gentrification is definitely a social injustice. By definition, by definition, gentrification is the process of buying, renovating, and or improving houses and businesses within a selected community or district with the hopes to conform that neighborhood to middle class and upper middle class standards. And so here we are in New York City. And a lot of us have either personally witnessed or been a victim of the process of gentrification. And we are victims of gentrification by inflated food prices in our neighborhoods or increased rent prices in our neighborhoods. And notice how I say our neighborhoods. Because the fact is, there was a time when the people who are now quick to move to our neighborhoods wouldn't have dared to venture into our neighborhoods, yet alone rent an apartment, yet alone buy a building, cash, on the spot, no questions asked. 15, 20 years ago, right up the street from places like where we live right now, where we're holding this event. Why is that? These places have all of a sudden become safe havens when in the not so distant past, it was known as a crime-ridden, drug-infested neighborhood. If I walked out this building 15, 20 years ago, I'm not walking down Herkimer. I know those guys on Herkimer. Listen, I consider myself a survivalist, but I also consider myself to be wise. It ain't worth the battle to say that I made it. Right? Monroe Street, Marcy, Herkimer, Chauncey. You kid, Gates Avenue. My goodness. You know what I'm talking about. What about the train station? Utica Avenue train station? Anybody who knows. Either you get on in the front, but don't get caught in the back. And if they chase you, and you go down onto that platform, all you're doing is run into a trap if you run up in the back. There's nothing for you to do, because you're coming out by Boys and Girls High School. It was a well-known, understood thing. So how now all of a sudden do certain people want to move there?
They made a deal.
Oh yeah, let's talk about that. Somebody made a deal. Somebody stopped and said, wait a second. We're living out on Long Island. We're living out in the deep parts of Staten Island. It's taking us 2 hours, 3 hours to get to work. Traffic conditions have become deplorable.
Don't forget the flooding.
Oh, yeah. But I'm on a time frame, so we're going to fast forward. I'm with you. Now, when we stopped and we looked at this, they said, wait a second. These guys are getting to work in 15, 20 minutes, and it's taking me 3 hours. My quality of life is being impacted. So how are we going to get them out, and how are we going to move ourselves in? Gentrification, that's how. They got their local councilmen and councilwomen involved. Those people who were supposed to be advocating on our behalf. And they were making secret deals. They were promising them certain things, certain positions, high in government. And who did they forsake along the way? Who became the collateral damage? Me, you, low-income families, small businesses. They stopped and they told them, hey, listen, this will benefit everybody. The cost of your home will go up. Don't worry about it. You'll be able to survive. Everybody will feel better about this. And so now we see luxury high-rises growing up and coming up in buildings that were abandoned for decades. Wait a second. They got a high-rise over there? Not just a building, a high-rise. There's a pool in the basement. They have a gym. Their amenities. I heard you in the laundry room. Their amenities are far superior than any building. But then we look and we're like, wait a second, who's going to live there? Because if you have all of that, the rent has to be a certain price. And I'm definitely not moving over there, and we got crackheads up the block. We got people suffering up the block. I'm supposed to pay all this money, and somebody's going to try to rob me in 15 minutes? Ain't going to happen. But what did they do? They waited. They waited us out. They waited until our parents got to the point where they could retire. They had the diligence and the patience to say, we're going to put things into place right now so that by the time we get to 2 decades later, their children won't understand what's going on. And so I say, we actually seen it happening before our eyes. And so then what ended up happening? Our parents were paying rent. And let me just give y'all a quick story. I used to live on Herkimer Street. I'm right there, Herkimer between, is that Buffalo? Buffalo and Ralph. In 1999, I rented a 2-bedroom apartment on Herkimer Street for $700. And the fact that y'all say wow, lets you know it was that. Now, I'd be lying to you. I'd be an absolute liar if I told you in 20 years, I think my rent would increase by the amount of an apartment on Herkimer Street now. So, we got a lot of New York City people here. How much do y'all think that apartment is worth today? Now you said it right, hit the nail on the head. $2,000 today. $2,000. Wow. How many of us expect our rent to increase? What is that? From $700 to $2,000? That's almost 3 times. Almost 3 times the amount in 20 years. So if you had a child, by the time your child grows up, 3 times the rent. You think they had me and you in mind when this was going on? Do you expect to be making enough money in 20 years to be able to pay 3 times your rent? Especially when you start off that you know it's a bad neighborhood. I had to live there based off the fact that at that point in my life, I could not afford that type of, I needed to have rent that I could afford. And let me say this, when I was paying that $700, that was a lot for that time. It's a lot of money. And so here, where are we now? What happens when you can't pay your rent? What do you have to do? Gentrification, people. Gentrification. Besides housing court, with family, it forces us to move together. It forces us to move in. Now I gotta go and talk to my mother and say, hey, listen, I know I moved out. I know you was waiting to get rid of me, but I gotta move back. But what happens? Her rent has gone up too. How many of us are going to live in a 2-bedroom apartment? At a certain point, it's just like entirely too many of us in here. We all like our space, right? Yep. Mm-hmm. And so that's why I say where our councilmen and our councilwomen have failed us. Our alleged city leaders have failed us from times past. They allowed our parents and the less fortunate to go to the wolves. They wanted us to figure it out without us knowing what they were doing. And they stopped and they told us, yeah, there's a town hall meeting. Come and be a part of it. Oh, you weren't there? It's not my fault. The meeting was there. That's not okay. Right. And so, the point that we get to as a people is, we need to understand to take control of our own destiny. We need to understand that this is no longer about is relying on other people, that yes, we'll be involved with the process, but I'm going to control what happens to me, and I'm going to help control what happens to you. Because the reality is that if I can't do business in these neighborhoods where gentrification is taking place, then what is the point of me saving all my money for all these years, and the people I've been doing business with have to move? Right. Now they're gone. I stopped and I said, I want to be an educator, and I want to teach people who look like me in my community because I think other people aren't teaching them. So I go into the school system, I become an educator there, but all of a sudden, the people that I'm teaching and I'm educating don't look like me and you. That's an issue. Everything that I propose to do, I can no longer do. And so what do? It's not as simple as getting up and getting a new job, you know. It's not as simple as getting up and buying a new house. How dare them put us in a position that I can help build a community for years. I can help ensure that certain things are in place so that my people are taken care of, that the cultural aspects of my community look a certain way, and they uproot that in a moment by changing the financial situation of the individuals involved. And so then I ask us, what are we going to do? You know, the reason why I asked about, do you know about organizations like Ahm Zadik? Because if you don't know about organizations like Ahm Zadik, you might be asking yourself the question, how can I get involved? How can I be involved so that these things don't happen and that, listen, sometimes the damage is done. Sometimes we are already suffering from certain things. But what can I do to be involved? The brother just said we need more cops, right? We need more brothers as cops. Sisters too. We need more people like me as cops. But this is an ongoing process. We need more people like me and you in systems of government. We need educated people that will come, that when they're having their meetings, will come back and report back to us about what's going on. Right. And we have to make it our business to want to be a part of those meetings. We can no longer take the approach to say we don't want to be involved in politics when politics are affecting me and your lives. Oh, here we go again. I understand civil rights happened, brother. I understand that we need to do things as one, brother. But, I just don't have time for all of that. You cannot want to be in a fight, but that don't mean that you ain't in the fight. You cannot want to get robbed, but that don't mean somebody ain't taking something from you. You cannot want a problem, but that don't mean you don't have problems. There's no point in ignoring what's happening around us and what we're doing. There's no point in putting our children in harm's way when we know that there are certain things that we have to do to protect them. And so there's no reason that we should be having these conversations once a year, twice a year, 3 times a year when they're meeting monthly, they're meeting weekly, they're creating laws and standards for me and you to keep us down, and we're trying to build ourselves up. So what's the process we're going to take? I can stop and tell you, sovereignty is the ultimate goal. Sovereignty is the ultimate goal. But until we get to that point of sovereignty, what are we going to do? Are we patronizing one another? Are we making sure that we're letting each other know about the housing options in our community? Or are we still sending an email about affordable housing? Because an email about affordable housing is nice. But ain't this the thing about affordable housing? The worst kept secret in the world? Don't you always make a little bit too much, but not enough? It's the worst kept secret. You're like, I don't even read them no more. Yeah, I'm afraid to move now, because I'm like, listen, either I can stay where I'm at and tough this out, or walk into another problem and be moving how soon? And so, listen, affordable housing in New York City. You know who it's for? Those people who are low-income families, you might be able to get in there, but based on your income, you can barely afford it. Right. So what happens? There's another homeless crisis happening in New York City right now. Whether we realize it or not, whether they're talking about it on the news or not. There's a situation where we have a bunch of high-rise buildings that are empty. Yet, the shelters are full. There's not enough shelters in New York City, and they're trying to destroy some of those shelters. And so they're asking, like, where are these people going to go? You know where they want them to go. Out of New York City. But when that happens, when we have people leaving out and different people gone, right? And the situation continues to increase. Do we ever ask ourselves, well, if you got a building and nobody's in that building, why can't we rent to people in those buildings? People who are working. People who actually can give up some money for some rent. And I'm going to tell y'all right now, because that was never part of the plan. It was never part of the plan for you to be able to afford these new apartment buildings that they're building up because they didn't want us in them. Accept that. Deal with that and move forward from there. They didn't want gyms in your building. They didn't want pools in your building. If they did, you would have been had it in your building. I'm all for better services and upgraded neighborhoods. But the reality is that the neighborhood didn't change to the better until the face of the neighborhood changed. Then all of a sudden, money started being dispensated in a certain fashion. Then all of a sudden, it was like, oh, we need this over here and that over there. And even though these new businesses was coming into the neighborhood, the jobs didn't increase in the neighborhood. So when that happens, brothers and sisters, when we see that going on, we have to ask ourselves the questions, how are we going to battle that? And so as I wrap this up, I'm going to say this. The answer to gentrification does not end tomorrow. It is a process that we have to go through. We have to admit to ourselves that in order to build, there has to be incremental progress. Don't think that all of a sudden we're going to leave here, we're going to shake hands, we had a nice muffin, we had a nice cinnamon roll, the coffee was great, I like those brothers, boom, and there it goes. This is not just years, this is not just decades, this is centuries of oppression that have taken place. In order to reverse that, we have to understand that the same amount of time, if not less, is going to be needed. And then I want us to remember this. As we change, they change. Exactly. It was civil rights in the 50s and the 60s. It's social injustice now in the 21st century. In the 21st century. Times are changing. It's the same behavior, but new titles. Exactly. Don't be confused by what's going on. Don't let them confuse you and tell you that things are getting better when they're not. Be concerned with what's happening. Have yourself to be involved in what's happening. And make sure that we're extending ourselves to one another. I hope you guys got something out of what I said. That you find these conversations to be important and will be part of these type of conversations moving forward. I thank you all for your time and attention. Peace and blessings to you all. And so at this time, I'm going to open up the floor for questions and answers. Anybody who would have questions at this time, I will field some of your questions prayerfully. I'll be able to answer them all. My brother.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Thank you for that information. Firstly, what does Ahm Zadik mean? What's the translation for that?
Sure. Ahm Zadik is a Hebrew word, is a Hebrew term. The Hebrew word Am meaning people, and Zadik meaning righteous. So, in particular, the righteous people.
Okay. Now, what you were saying earlier, in terms of, and this is the thing, let me put this out front first. To add to what you just said, we cannot allow them to change our narrative again.
Correct.
What I'm talking about is civil rights was their creation. Initially, it was the Black Power movement during the 40s, 50s, 60s, around that time. When they changed the Black Power movement, because there were always communities that were thriving, and then they figured out ways to destroy them, discredit them.
Correct.
They're still doing that, of course. Once they made it civil rights, a civil rights movement, it changed where it was inclusive of everyone, because for us, we were trying to empower ourselves, regain our identity, regain the level where we can support one another, and we were doing that. When they changed the civil rights, that was inclusive of the women's rights movement back there. The NLW was created. Gay rights can be included in that now. We hear them talking about the times that, yeah, we can identify with, I don't like using black for simplicity, black people.
Don't be afraid to use that term.
I really don't like, we didn't come out of the trailer box, and I think it's more cultural. Which I wanted to connect to also with the police, the cultural insensitivity or their lack of cultural understanding or being exposed to it. All of this goes into gentrification. Are you familiar with Robert Moses?
Yeah, of course.
Oh yeah, he's the one who destroyed, started the plan really about building the bridges so they could come from Long Island, and just come over, they killed the mom and pop stores.
Gotcha.
And put us in shadows. And then once we started fending for ourselves again, it comes the Vietnam War.
Right.
Men came back junkies. We woke up back again in the 80s. Then they brought crack into these neighborhoods.
Right.
So that plan, like you said, has always been going on all the
Right.
time. So, as a Hebrew Israelite, as a Hebrew Israelite of familiar with KOI and out there is get us out of this country.
Okay.
But what I wrote down here too is be mindful of your environment while
Sure.
we're here, because I wanted to be, there's a difference between digging in and understanding what we're up against. So those that don't want to leave or those that are going to be here, we can kind of cover each other's back. But also, an avenue has been created for us to learn more about how to get up out of here, because we consider here modern day Egypt. So we're really not supposed to be here, but while we are here, again, know your environment. So,
Correct.
How do you feel about it?
So there's a couple of things going on. I believe that as a people, we should never think one way. Because when we think one way, if we're headed toward a pit, you're destined to fall.
Right.
Your vision must be wide. You must learn when you need to pivot, when you need to turn, when your plan is not working. For those who read the Holy Scriptures, the Old Testament in particular, there was a man called Abraham. And Abraham understood how to move within different nations.
Right.
And he was respected
Exactly.
wherever he went.
Exactly.
For us, it has to be a thing that we understand how to follow that model. You can be who you are, and I am who I am, and there can be a mutual respect. But you gotta know where you are. If you're in another land and you see how they operate, sometimes you have to adapt to what's going on. In particular, that man Abraham, he knew that when he was in Egypt, that they won his wife. As soon as he went in there, so what did he tell her? Tell him you're my sister.
Right.
Because if he didn't operate in that way, they were going to kill him. And so, I say that for us because we're under attack. I don't care how you want to say it. Our children and our women are prime sources of that attack, prime targets of that attack. Those are the ones that they go for first, right? And then our leaders come right after that. And so, we have to protect our women, we have to protect our children, and then after that, we have to make sure that we protect our leaders.
Right.
Those who are going to make sure that we're headed in the right direction. 1, 2, 3.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I know you were speaking about gentrification. I had to run out to get some batteries for the reporter.
Okay.
So I don't know if you touched on this part. Don't you think that somewhat gentrification is part of our fault? Because like you were speaking about parents and people owning homes within our communities. And when it was time to sell, they came with, like you said, cash, and they just fell for the okie doke, as we would say. And they never, like, you can't go to Bensonhurst as a black family and buy a property.
Right.
Because they go through these real estate companies to where they try to, yeah, you can look at the house, but you're really not going to be the one who's going to get that house. Or you go through certain communities, whatever the redlining that they do. But in our communities, we got infatuated by the money, and we kind of sold ourselves kind of into that position, because we could have stopped gentrification if we wanted to. What do you have to say about that?
I'm gonna give you two things. I definitely understand what you're saying,
Right.
but I don't agree.
Yes, sir.
And I'm gonna tell you why. You can't have a plan to take advantage of somebody, and because they fell for your bait, say, well, that's your fault. You knew what you were doing when you did it. Your idea was to displace people. But to your point, if we had more conversations about what was going on, and we told one another, listen, look at what they're doing. Don't sell your home. Hold out. You know, some people in this is what we can't, or, and I'm gonna say it, because I heard you say about Black, you know, if you're gonna sell your home, sell it to one another. Make sure you in these type of meetings, let them know, listen, I'm about to sell my house. Is anybody looking to buy a house? Because I think one of us need to have it. Those type of conversations weren't going on that needed to go on. So there were some people, and this is the reality. It's time for me to retire. You know, I'm on a fixed income now.
Right.
I'm not planning on staying with this hustle and bustle forever. So I'm moving down to a southern state. I might be moving to North Carolina, South Carolina, Florida, Alabama, wherever you want to go, where the cost of living is cheaper. Now somebody comes along and says, I'll buy your house for cash, and I don't have to put it on the market. Listen, the reality is that when gold glitters before us, it catches our attention. And so some of them was like, hey, listen, you want to buy it? No. You want to buy it? No. You? No. Listen, I'm leaving. Somebody's going to get this property. And so that's where the problem starts to come in. Some people just sold out for the money. It's just a reality. And so I know in Harlem in particular, those type of conversations were going on.
That's right.
They were like, listen, y'all see what they're doing up here. Don't sell. Hold out. And so, you know, when you're talking about $1 million, $1.5 million, money that we haven't seen like that. We're looking at it like, hey, listen, I don't think I'm ever going to see that type of money in my lifetime, not in one shot. That became an issue. And so I say that it's twofold. What you're saying is correct, but I also am not going to let them off the hook. They knew what they were doing, and they set us up for it, and we fell for it. That's fine. But that's what these conversations are about, so that we don't continue to fall for it moving forward. So I got two hands in the back, and I'll get to you. My brother right here.
Yeah, I'm trying to make a small contribution. I heard all the things that you identified, Richard, or situation. But I see problems of like equation. You know, okay, when I have a problem, I ask myself, what is my contribution plus whatever I'm dealing with?
Right.
And the results. Now, I think there's a major thing, it has to do with slavery, really, and we embrace it. It's mistrusting each other.
Yes.
You touched on it, which has to do with we don't like to talk to one another.
Right.
I'm in a building, man, the majority of people looks like me, right?
Yeah.
We don't need to say good morning or hello sometimes.
That's a problem. Yes.
So it came to me that, listen, who's paying for this building? It is our rent. Who is paying for the maintenance of it?
Right.
You know, and our rent is contributing to the profits of the owners, right?
Correct.
So I'm saying, wait a minute, why can we not come together, pool our own money, you know, and own this building?
Right.
You know, from my
Did y'all hear what he just said?
from my accent, you might realize,
Yeah.
I'm born here. Okay?
That's fine. Come
Okay,
on.
so in the Caribbean, we have a system that I think it's an old Afro thing. It's called susu.
Yeah.
Okay, so I may want something, right? And I don't have all the money. So we come together, we pool our money and we put it in trust.
Sure.
So there's some trust.
Right.
There's no sort of like, you gotta go to this bank guy, whatever. It's more trust. Okay? And then so then when we call it hands, okay?
Yeah.
And then when it's your turn, you know, you get your, then you pay back. Basically, it's your money, you pay back. To you.
Sure.
But you know, it's like we're advancing you a loan.
Correct.
There's no interest in it. Over time, you know, some people might say, okay, they want to think. But the point I'm trying to get to is that we could use a similar system. Why not create a trust, right? Trust for Africans. This is about Africans, us. When I say Africans, I'm not talking just about Afro-Americans. But you have to start home first, yes?
That's right.
Right. Okay. So we create a trust, and this is a trust for us, our people. Our population here, man, is 13%. The last time I checked it out, okay? It was 13% of like 44 million people. Maybe that could have like 40 something million. It's my math, right? I don't know. But whatever it might be, what is like millions of dollars. So if everyone, right, would contribute just $1, my brother.
God, thank you.
Just
$1.
Okay?
Right.
Just $1. We could solve a lot of problems. Now, we talk about gentrification.
I hate to cut you off. I really hate to cut you off.
Okay.
We're running out of time. I don't want to be disrespectful to the other teachers. So I'm going to say this. What you're saying is absolutely right. That's a great practice, and that's actually happened already. Our brother Marcus Garvey did that back in the 1920s.
Yes.
It was going on.
That's right.
It was happening. How do we get away from those principles?
Right.
We need to ask ourselves those questions. Okay, listen. 1, 2, I'm going to ask you two to be very brief, and then I'm going. I'm glad you guys are engaged in this discussion.
I'm going to be brief, and and as you can tell from my accent, I wasn't born in New York. But I want to tell you that I came from a community in Alabama that just did that. And I will call it my bubble, my black bubble. And we were segregated. We were just segregated. The white people were over here, the black people were over here. But in my bubble, I had my education, I had my black teachers, I had my black doctors, I had everything I needed within that bubble.
That's right.
And, you know, we had to go out of the bubble to work, but we came back in, you know, and that was our protection. How can we get back to that? I'm not, like exactly how he's saying, just create this bubble of safety where within this bubble, everything that we need in order to be educated, to see people that are educated that look like us is in this bubble. So I'm just thinking that it worked there. It was forced, but it worked.
Right.
And none of us wanted that bubble to be popped.
Right.
But when we got money, when they started letting us move out to the suburbs with them, the bubble started to, you know, disperse. But that was my safety. That's where we went. And
So let me speak to that, and I'm going to say this quickly. You know, of course, trust is always the thing. Mutual respect is one of those things. And when those things start to leave us, that's when the bubble actually bursts. But we got time for question and answer. We got another speaker coming up. But we're gonna speak to that when we get back to question and answer. I'm gonna ask my brother Zadik to remember that question. How do we preserve that bubble, the black bubble, when we can have our own community and have a safe haven for one another? And when we get back to question and answer, we'll discuss that a little bit more. Last time.
Hey, we have to, we need to really be, and I saw that done so well on DCB yesterday afternoon, where we have to be involved in politics. All politics are local. And what happens is that I've watched it in the Bronx because I'm on my neighborhood advisory board and the community board. And what I've seen is that Latinos have come in there, and they have, and I have nothing against them, but they came in and they took over the political system so that now they're able to extend to their people all the goodies that come into the Bronx. Except for, of course, Riverdale,
Right.
you know, where the Edomites are.
They control the resources.
Right, they control the resources. Now, my thing is this. I watched the city, Union City, New Jersey. They had nothing but Cuban immigrants coming there. They couldn't go to the regular banks and borrow anything. So what they did, they formed a credit union. Everybody contributed to that credit union, and now practically everybody in that city owns homes now. They own businesses because they were able to loan to each other. I proposed this years ago, and I'm thinking that's something that it's legal. You know, it's just like a legal susu. You know what I mean? Where we can loan, we can borrow and loan to each other, and put people in places that we trust.
Who's our black banks?
There you go.
If we put our money in our black banks, how much does that increase the likelihood that we'll get a loan?
Right.
Think about that.
Right.
Okay. my time is up. So I overextended my time. I thank you for your time and attention.